Welcome to Card Players The Circuit, hosted by your favorite set, Scott Huff, Gavin Smith, and Joe Sebok.
That's right, everyone. You are listening to CardPlayer.com's The Circuit. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122 on CardPlayer.com and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. Scott Huff, Gavin Smith, and
No
Joe Sebok tonight.
No Joe. Well, he'll be here in a bit.
He'll be here shortly. He is still in the $1,000 No Limit Hold'em event with $1,000 rebuys. He will be here to interview.
He has good chips too.
Mr. Dan Harrington, who's on the program tonight.
He just made a sick bluff.
Did he?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. Go ahead. Tell me about it before I even tell them what's going on tonight on the show.
I don't know what the pre-flop action was, but there was a lot of chips in the pot, so I can only assume it was raised. The flop came up Jack, Deuce, Deuce with two clubs. Joe bet. I believe Joe check called, and the turn was a 4 of clubs, and Joe moved in, all in, and the guy thought forever, and threw his hand away, and Joe showed me the 10 of spades and the 9 of diamonds.
He showed you the 10 of spades and 9 of diamonds?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which was no hand, no draw, no hope.
And now he's gone from about 5,000 up to 19,000.
He's up to 19,000, has a shot, man. But, I'm cheering for him, even though I don't want to have to dress up as a superhero.
Absolutely. Well, like we said, we're here at the Bellagio in Las Vegas. The Bellagio Cup 2 starting up July 24th through August 10th, a series of $1,000 events culminating in a $10,000 event. So you'll have to come down to Bellagio and play in one of those. They give you double stacks. It's a Jack McClellan to run tournament, so it's going to be huge, as our show is this evening.
Yes, it's a big one.
Another 2-part episode for everyone. So you'll get to hear about Sebok's bluff tomorrow night, but we have Hand of the Day today for you. We have phone calls, tons of emails, poker talk with Big G, without the baby kangaroo, unfortunately, tonight, and Dan Harrington on the show.
Dan's great.
That's right. First half of Dan Harrington. Because I have my questions carefully planned out for Dan because I wanted to make sure I didn't drop the ball at all on this one. And first half, I think we'll call this, because he has Harrington on Hold'em.
Yeah.
So he has 3-part volume.
Right.
3 volumes. I'm going to call this one Harrington History. So that's volume 1.
Volume 1. Yeah.
And then Strategic Play will be tomorrow night's show.
And then we'll get him back in for
some other time.
For Action Dan Bluffing.
Action Dan Bluffing Show. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Our live show, as we've told everyone, has been moved to Sunday, July 30th at 10 a.m. The donk line will be wide open for you to call in and ask your strategy questions for whoever we can rope into coming down there that early. Gavin continues to glare at me about the timing of the show. So, Gavin, why don't you tell us about, you had a whole weekend of play. What's been going on in your world of poker?
Well, today was the rebuy event.
Huge.
Really sucked because I was in for 12,000, but I ended with diddly poop and chips. It was a really bad, rebuy period for me. So I started back with 3,900. I worked it back up to about close to 7,000, and then I picked up kings against aces. So that didn't turn out so well.
The classic cooler.
Yeah, and I didn't give myself a chance to ever be able to get. I didn't have enough chips to get away from it anyways. But he raised, and I just flat called him pre-flop, and the flop came out 3 low cards, and when he bet, I moved in on him. So
wow. So that was that.
It was unfortunate.
Was that against your boy Mike O'Malley?
No. Mike and I were not at the same tables at that point. But no, so it didn't go all that great. But it's okay.
What other events did you have over the weekend? Did you play Raz? Did you play?
I played Pot Limit Hold'em.
Right,
Pot Limit Hold'em.
Tell us about that.
It was sick. I was just killing my table. My table would seem like it would be a tough table. It had J.C. Tran, Amnon Filippi. It had Amir Vahidi and Joe Hashem and myself all at the same table.
Wow.
So I thought it would be tough, but it just seemed like the guys didn't really want to play pots with me, or maybe they just weren't picking up cards at the right time, but I was really dominating the table, and I had my stack up pretty good. And then this elderly Irish guy, he raised his 2 people call, and I called the blind with 3-5. You might ask why I did that, but it's what I did.
I wouldn't ask at this point. It's to become pretty clear.
So
because you wanted to.
So the flop comes down, Jack 3-3. Right? Rainbow. I check it. He bets 700. Folds to me. I make it 2,100. He calls 1,400 more. Turns a 9. I bet his last 2,100. He thinks for a second, decides to call. Turn the hands up. I got 5-3. He's got 2 7s. River's a 7. So it's like, damn it, there's $10,000 pot gone. But that's okay. I still got like 6. I'm fine. So then we go off the break. We come back. I raise it up. and he re-raises me, kind of not that big. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I really don't think he's super strong here. And I'm holding ace queen, so I thought I'm going to call and see if I can hit an ace or queen, and then I'm just going to go with his hand if I do. So I call, flop comes down, queen 3-4 with 2 hearts. I check it, he bets, I move all in. He goes, all right then, calls me. Drop the hands, I got ace queen, he's got 2 9s. And it comes heart, and he makes a runner and a flush. So the same guy brutalized me, and that was my pot limit hold'em.
Why don't you tell us about the 3-6 hand that Mike Matiso just felt the need to absolutely go nuts about in the full tilt suite? That was your hand, correct? The 3-6 hand?
Yeah, that was an interesting hand. That was, what tournament was that in? That was...
I thought that was pot limit also. So he walks in, Gavin Smith found a way to get chips in the bottom of the hand. I wouldn't think twice about playing on a blah, blah, blah.
No, it wasn't in the pot limit because it was somebody else.
Shorthand and no limit?
It was David Levy. It was in the... No, it was in the one that was on Saturday, whatever that was. But anyways...
It was a no limit event.
Yeah, it was a no limit event.
2,000 probably. No, it was the 5,000 shorthanded, Gavin. Had to be. No, couldn't have been.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I can't remember the event, but it was a full table. But anyways, a bunch of people limp. I limp on the button with 3-6 off. Because it felt like it. So, anyways, the flop comes down. Queen 9-7. Checks to me. I bet 175. David Levy calls 175. Another guy calls 175. So the turn's a 3. And David Levy now bets 325. And I'm thinking, that's a weak-ass bet, He's just trying to hope that I don't do anything too big here. And, I'm thinking I can probably get this pot off him on the river, with a pretty big move or whatever. And there's like 800 in the pot, too. So, my 3 might be good. He could easily have 10 jack here, and just be betting a draw that he was planning on calling, wants to get there cheaper because he thinks I'll bet more. So, anyways, he bets 3.25, and the other guy folds, and I call 3.25. And the river's a 3. And David Levy checks, and I bet 800, and he calls me. And, I showed him 3-6 off, and he was kind of grossed out.
That's just the Gavin Smith way, though.
Yeah.
People get a little grossed out.
Yeah, that one was fun. I enjoyed that.
Except for the ladies, you're the third sexiest man on the planet that plays poker. Now it's time for our World Series of Poker News. World Series of Poker News. It's Slamastica.
It's
You
what?
might be wondering what that means. And I'm going to read you an email from a listener in Prague. It says, listen to the circuit every day out here in Prague. Why don't you try to use Poker News? It's Slamastica, pronounced Schlamashtika, which I didn't want to say the first time out because then you would think I was just out of my mind. Schlamashtika means wild, unpredictable, crazy, fucked up in a good way. Of course, no one will know what it means outside of Czech Republic, but that makes it that much better. Thanks, Dave. Well, Dave, that's my favorite one so far. How about you, Gavin? I like Slamastica.
I think it's kind of cool, yeah.
I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to spread the Czech language around the United States using this and apparently all around the globe. The first 3 emails sent in for Dan Harrington tonight were from Moscow, Prague, and Australia.
Wow, he's got some worldwide fans.
And so do you, buddy. You're part of what's making... How would they even know the circuit's email address unless Gavin Smith was doing it on a nightly basis?
Wow.
And Joe Sebok, even though he's not here.
And Scott Huff.
Thank you very much, sir.
Danielle Huff.
Absolutely. And Justin Schronk. We'll throw it all out there.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is some Slamastica news we got for you here. $5,000 7-card stud. The winner was Benjamin Lin. He won $256,620. Second place, Sean Shaykhon. And third place, Cindy Violet. In the $1,500 no limit, the winner was Matt Ram. He won $655,141 for his win there, and the bracelet, of course. $2,500 no limit event. The winner was John Gale. John Gale. I'm John Gale. I saw him afterwards, actually. I was playing roulette, and he walked behind me. The wheel's still not rigged in my favor anymore. They decided to switch him back here at Bellagio to mathematically correct, I think. So he won $374,849. Fourth place, Joe Hashem. He's having a pretty good series already.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't care what Joe says about him. Fifth place, Alex Yatsum Jacob, who's also a beast a little bit.
Wow, he had a huge ship lead going in, so he's got to be super, super disappointed.
Yeah, I can imagine. Aaron Bartley, 10th on the TV final table bubble, and a friend of the circuits, Theo Tran, 11th place there. I know you're proud of your boy Theo. The $5,000 no limit hold'em shorthanded winner, Jeff Madsen, $643,381. Is this kid the story of the World Series or what? I mean, him and Bill Chen have got to be the stories of this World Series. His second bracelet
And he got a third in Omaha.
He got a third in Omaha, 8 or better. He's cashed for over $1.3 million. I'm assuming he has to be leading the Player of the Year for the World Series of Poker race at this point. Second place, I'm sure you were not happy about it, but Eric Lindgren took second.
Yeah, but he played good though, and the bottom line is when they were heads up, Jeff had the best hand most of the time. It's hard to fade that. He played well. He played well, but he really hit some hands at the right time too. So.
And we're down to 7 players in the $2,000 no limit. Justin Scott has a commanding chip lead at the moment. We will update you on what's happening there tomorrow. The $1,500 Raz chip leader, Miami John Cernudo, Cliff Johnny Bax, Joseph, he's still alive, Perry Friedman, Carlos Mortensen, all among the chip leaders. The $5,000 pot limit hold'em event is down to 18 players. Chip leader Tommy Smith, also still alive, Kirill Gerasimov, Jason Lester, Nam Lee, Chao Zhang, and Cindy Violet. And then obviously the $1,000 with rebuys. I think the one thing I have to mention here, and it's no big shock, Gavin, 48 rebuys for Daniel Negreanu. Is he out of his mind? What is his story? He just likes to do it.
He kept going in dark, and one guy, I guess, won like 20 ends or something off him. It was kind of sick. So,
I mean, that's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
48 rebuys. I mean, is he even still alive? I wonder.
He had chips on that left. He had chips on that left.
Okay. And Mark Safe had a ton of chips there in the top 15. Victor Ramden, Joe Bartholdi, Phil Hellmuth, Josh Aryeh, Jennifer Lee, John Jawanda, Greg Raymer, and somehow Mike Matusow, even though he was moving all in blind, by the way, at the end of the rebuy period, like a few minutes before the end of the rebuy. He picked up Kings, Queens, and maybe Ace-King. Kings he couldn't get any action on. Queens he got cracked by Ace-9. And he was like steaming out of control in the hallway. Well, now it's time for poker talk with Big G. And unfortunately, we do not have the baby kangaroo with us. Gavin Smith. Something that has been haunting my game and that I realize I don't know how to do very well. Check raising. I think we all know what it is. How is it used? Give us a little primer on the effective use of the check raise and no limit hold'em.
That's a very interesting question. I guess, well, first off, you have to establish what your goal is to do. Is it an offensive check raise or is it a defensive check raise? I mean, a lot of times you might have, say, top pair with a mediocre kicker, then you're just looking to make sure the people behind you can't see the turn card for cheap. So that's why you're going to check raise this hand, because you might have an aggressive guy on the button or something that you're pretty sure is going to bet a lesser hand. Or you have to decide, is it an offensive check raise, which a perfect example I usually think for that is actually the hand I talked about earlier where the flop came the Jack 3-3. If you check raise right away on that flop there, and the guy's got ace, jack, queens, kings, or aces, it's so hard for him to get away from it. And that's an offensive check raise there because you're showing strength. But typically, most novice players don't think you would do that play with a set. So that's a good play. And then the reason the two reasons you use it: one you use it to thin the field. 2, you use it to build a pot. Right.
So in the case of when you decide to use it as an offensive maneuver, it's very dependent on you trying to figure out what the person has though in that spot as well. Because you can easily lose 2 overcards to the Jack 3 flop and Ace King. Something like that's what it might call.
Sometimes, but boy, there's a lot of players out there that continue to rip even with just 2 overs.
Really.
So like the guy who had the 7s with me, I was pretty sure that no matter what he had, he was going to give me some money. So that's why I went for it right away.
Right. Well, I remember reading, and maybe I'm wrong, but I believe that in Doyle's Super System, he mentioned how he felt that a check raise a lot of the time was a very weak play. When do you pick off other people's check raises as just, I'm sure it's very situational, but are there any telltale signs when someone's check raise is an attempt to get a free card where they're, or just a very weak check raise, they're trying to represent something much bigger than what they have and just take it away on the flop?
It's very difficult to do it to try to get a free card because you're giving up possession. The other guy's still going to have possession on you. But a lot of times people might do it just because you're betting late. And so they'll check raise you with a lot lesser hand just because they think you're just trying to steal. So if you bet late and get check raised, it's often a very strong play to put in a re-raise there regardless of your holdings just because it's very hard for them to call. You bet they were trying to represent something. Now you represent what they were trying to and it causes a whole mess of trouble for them.
So I thought check raising was one way to get a free card and limit hold'em. Maybe is that not a play that's used really well?
How are you going to get a free card if you check raise and then I call you, and then the turn comes and you don't hit your draw or whatever, and you check, now it's up to me to decide whether or not you get a free card. You don't get to decide anything.
Right.
So raising with position is where you get a free card, not check raising.
Okay. I stand corrected, and happily so. Maybe I can actually work that into my game now. If you'd like to hear some of the hands like Gavin discussed earlier on before we got into poker talk, you can check out Card Player's exclusive coverage of the World Series of Poker, working 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, even though it's impossible to bring you all of the best from this year's World Series of Poker. Each and every day of the World Series, Card Player is working tirelessly to bring you chip counts, live updates, tournament news, and hand-by-hand action. If you've yet to check out the new site, take a look now at cardplayer.com. We will be back right after this with Hand of the Day, your phone calls and emails on The Circuit.
How does $10 in free poker cash sound? It's easy at vcpoker.com. Just log on, sign up, and get $10 free to start playing a wide range of games, including Hold'em. vcpoker.com makes it easy with the latest software, and your payments and payouts are always safe and secure at vcpoker.com. With 60 years of gaming excellence, vcpoker.com is a company you can trust. Sign up now for your free $10. Log on to vcpoker.com/free35 and get your money for nothing and your chips for free.
Welcome back to The Circuit, everyone. Scott Huff and Gavin Smith. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122, on cardplayer.com, and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. We are patiently awaiting the arrival of Action Dan Harrington to the Circuit studio. In the meantime, time for Hand of the Day.
Nice hand, sir.
This one comes from yesterday's event, yesterday's final table. Eric Lindgren and Jeff Madsen heads up. Eric with a slight chip lead in this one. He had $1,314,000. Jeff Madsen with $1,219,000 during the hand. Our blinds are $12,000 and $24,000 with a $4,000 ante. Lindgren raises to $50,000 and Madsen calls. The flop comes Jack 10 deuce and Madsen bets $60,000. Lindgren makes the call and the turn is the 4. Madsen fires $100,000 and Lindgren calls. The river is the Jack, and Madsen bets $200,000. Lindgren thinks for a long time before folding. Madsen shows 6-5 for 6 high and rakes the pot. Gavin Smith, what do you think about this hand?
Well, there's a couple of things that I think that are important. One, I think you're crazy if you're going to show bluffs to a great player. Okay, just in this particular case, the match didn't go much longer, so it worked out. Two, I mean, Eric's hand there was ace high, and he thought for a long time about calling. So it seems to me like it's a pretty high variance, risky play. I mean, I think Jeff got caught up in that hand and just wanted to outplay a great player, and it turned out he did it. But I mean, he risked like $400,000 in chips to try to have this joy of being able to turn over a bluff, and that's just some risky shit, man. That's just like kind of crazy. I think that if you're going to be playing a really, really, really good player, you don't want to put in a ton of chips when you're out of position. You really want to try to make your big pots be when you have the button.
Right.
And, the man had 6 high, and he's trying to put a whole bunch of chips in the pot. It's just a little too kamikaze for my liking.
Right. Was there anything particular about the play, though, that you think helped him sell the bluff? Or he just was committed to doing it, and that was enough?
I think he was committed to do it, and I do think that I will give him credit. I think he recognized throughout the play of the hand that Eric did not have a huge hand, did not have probably a pair even. But so he makes the bet on the end, and it's just a question of whether or not Eric's going to be willing to call with ace high, and in this case he wasn't. Right.
So you think maybe a little bit of ego there?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about ego. I think maybe it's just that it's a great feeling to outplay a great player, and I think probably Jeff wanted to do that.
All right, we have another email here. We have our first email here. Gentlemen, what do you guys think about this theory? Towards the end of tournaments, sitting in the blind with absolute garbage with 2 or more players in the pot after me who have smooth called. If I totally miss the flop, I sometimes fold right out. I've noticed that seems to induce action by other players to try to steal the pot. My thinking is that if I have no chance at winning the pot, I want to increase the chances of someone else getting knocked out. I plan on folding to any bet anyway, so why not try to induce action between the other players? What do you think? Ludicrous?
I think it's one of the silliest things I've ever heard, honestly. I think that...
Well, set him straight, Gavin.
I think you're crazy. I think anybody that just folds for no action is crazy, because you never know, and nobody has anything, and you're just going to turn a pair and end up picking up a pot. So A, that's not senseless, and B, I mean, somebody folding at a turn really doesn't prompt people to put a whole bunch more chips. I mean, in order for someone to go broke, 2 people are going to have a hand and play it, and they're going to do that whether you fold out a turn or not. So I got to give that question donkey status.
Donkey status. Well, he didn't say necessarily folding out of turn, just checking out, basically checking out.
Just folding.
Right, folding out, right? It's not folding out of turn, it's just checking out.
Still folding out of turn because you're not supposed to just fold your hand. You're supposed to check and then...
Oh, is it bad etiquette to do that as well?
Yes.
Oh, it is? Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know it was bad etiquette
You're not offering
out.
any protection to one of the other people. You're not offering the protection to the third person in the pot.
Oh, I got it. All right. That's interesting. Because I actually have done it before in the past, checked out on a board that just had no shot. I called with some garbage out of the small blind. I'm like, all right, check out. And I didn't realize it was bad etiquette, but you're setting me straight as well. All right, the next email. What's up, guys? Just started listening to the show for the past 2 weeks, but love the show. I go to college down at Southern California and have been playing poker for 3 years now. Here's his hand history he wanted it to be hand of the day, but we're doing a couple of them today. I was playing in a 2-5 no limit game with about $350 in chips. I was under the gun and dealt pocket kings. I raised it to $30. The player right after me calls, and everyone folds to the button. The button re-raises and goes all in for 60. It was only 30 more for me to call, so I call, but then the player right after me re-raises again and makes it 150, making it 90 more for me to call. I think for a few minutes of what he could have, and then just make the call. The flop comes queen of spades, 7 of hearts, and 9 of spades. I'm first to act, so I check, and the player next to me bets 75. I re-raise and go all in for my remaining 200, and the player next to me calls. Turn is the 10 of spades, the river is the deuce of diamonds. The button mucks his hand immediately. I flip up my kings, and the player next to me shows pocket queens for a set of queens that he hit on the flop. My question is, did I lose the pot because I slow played my hand too much pre-flop and should have re-raised all in after the player next to me re-raised after the button, or was I just unlucky? Love the show, guys. Keep up the good work. Dan.
Well, sounds to me like there was a few misconceptions going on in this young man's mind. In all likelihood, in a 2-5 no limit game, it didn't matter what you were going to do. You're probably not going to get queens to throw it away. So
that's probably true.
So you're probably going to lose the pot. But the question is, when he made it 150, when the guy with queens made it 150, from what I was listening to in that email, it kind of sounded like the guy wasn't so sure his kings were the best hand, but he decided to call.
Right.
And right there's where you should be deciding if your hand is the best hand. And if you think it is the best hand, it's time to push all your chips in the middle, because there's a lot of dead money out there, and that's important to get. I mean, if you got 2 kings and the guy happens to have ace king, you're quite happy to have him fold his hand right there, and you can just pick up with the other stuff with no risk. So I think probably just flat calling pre-flop was a bit of a mistake. I think he probably should have shoved in, but
doesn't necessarily save him the pot, though.
He's gonna lose the pot almost for sure,
right?
Anyways, and it's just unlucky.
Well, I think the interesting point that you just made, though, it's something that I obviously do and made that big mistake in the $2,500 no limit, is not committing yourself to the actual, to actually believing you have the best hand. If you're still wavering, it's like in a 2-5 no limit game, kings are probably way the best hand in that spot, like you said. And in my case, in that tournament, I had the ace jack, and I was, I know he doesn't have a king, but if I knew he didn't have a king, why didn't I shove the rest of my money in?
Right.
It's that wavering, the problem of the wavering, when you should just fold or move all in on them. So thanks, Gavin, for your insight. Scott, Joe, and Gavin. Joe's not here. I play in a weekly spread limit poker game. The blinds are $1 and $2 with a max bet of 10 at any time and a maximum of 4 raises on each betting round. I can't seem to beat the game. How much should I be buying in for, and how do I combat people that always just call pre-flop and never raise? Thanks for the help, Casey. We don't talk too much really low limit poker, but what do you think about this?
Let me get this straight. It's a spread limit game. Is that right?
Yep.
Blinds are 1 and 2, and you can bring it in for 10.
The max bet of 10 at any time.
Is that at any street as well?
Any time. Yep. Maximum of 4 raises on each betting round.
I would buy in for a lot. Probably enough that you're gonna look like intimidating with chips. Maybe a couple hundred or something like that in there. And I would play tight in that game. And if I were gonna bring it in, I would be bringing it in for the max at all times. So wait on some hands. If these guys are calling too liberally, well, then punch them when you are in. Play tight, and then play the hands super aggressive when you get them. All
right, Danny, let's hear the phone call.
This is Candido calling from Rhode Island, and my question is about the main event. The buy-in is $10,000. In 1970, the buy-in was $10,000. Do you feel that this should be adjusted for inflation? I mean, the fields are just getting out of hand. They're expecting about 8,000 people. There are going to be donkeys and fish everywhere. I think the buy-in should be adjusted. A house in 1970 you could buy for $20,000. Thanks.
Gavin Smith.
Yeah, I do. I think it should be more money.
You do?
Yeah, I think it should be about probably $20,000. I think that the World Series is outgrowing its prices. I think all of the events should be more money. People have more money nowadays. But that being said, part of what is cool about the World Series is that the main event has always been a $10,000 buy-in, and that's kind of neat too. So, I mean, in order to keep the history, I don't have a problem with whichever way they decide.
Right. So there's no... You don't mind it being tradition, though?
No, I don't mind it being 10.
Okay. All right, here's our last email before we bring in Dan. On the July 12th episode, you guys were discussing whether or not the winner of the horse event would determine the best player in the world. You then went on to make comments on the main event and that it was never the case with either because it's only one tournament, which I agree with. Gavin then went on to say that the only time the winner of the main event was, in his mind, the best player in the world was when Huckseed won the main event in 1996. I would argue that when Stu Unger won in 1981, taking into account his win in 1980, he was considered the best player in the world. Do you find any truth to that? Granted, Gavin may be referring to the last few years, in which case I would love to have to agree with him.
Right, yeah, that's what I was actually referring to, because obviously, in 87 and 88, Johnny Chan was widely accepted as being the best player in the world. So that happened, and when Johnny Moss won, he was widely accepted as being, and when Doyle Brunson won, he was widely accepted as being the best player in the world. So I more was talking that in recent years, since the fields have been getting to a bigger size, that it is rarely the best player or who's considered to be the best player that wins the main event.
However, the gentleman we're about to bring in, had he won in 2003 and 2004, would probably be widely accepted as the greatest player in the world. We will be back right after this on the circuit with the author of Harrington on Hold'em. It's pretty easy to figure it out. Dan Harrington, everybody, right after this.
Hi, I'm Chris Ferguson, and here's my tip about playing Big Slick. While Ace-King in the hole is a strong hand, many players misplay it by going all in from early position. The problem is, it's only a coin flip against any pocket pair. To get the most out of Ace-King, raise 3 times the blind to drive out players with marginal hands. If you hit the flop, you can really punish players with smaller kickers playing this way. To learn more about playing Big Slick, visit FullTiltPoker.com, where you can learn, chat, and play with the pros.
This is Liz Lou, and you're listening to The Circuit.
Welcome back to the circuit, everyone. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122, on CardPlayer.com, and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. Scott Huff, Gavin Smith, and Joe Sebok. Our guest today has an astounding World Series of Poker track record that includes 2 bracelets, a World Championship in 1995, and back-to-back final tables in 2003 and 2004. He has over $4.8 million in lifetime tournament earnings and is the author of the now 3-volume poker opus Harrington on Hold'em. Dan Harrington, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me here, guys.
We're very excited to have you on the show. Man. So the World Series, you've played one event and cashed in one event. Is that right?
That's correct. I wasn't that happy, but I came in, I guess, 23rd. As everyone here knows who plays, you'd rather come a little bit higher than that once you put all that time in.
Is there any particular reason for the light schedule? Is this how you always do the World Series?
The last 4 or 5 years, this is how I've done the World Series. It's too much for me to come early, play all the events, plus I have other things, other commitments. I have a business, Anchor Mortgage, and I have to show up occasionally there.
That's so unfair.
It is. I agree.
The fact you have to show up your own business just seems a little out of whack to me.
So even in 2003 and 2004, you were just playing the light schedule and then the main event?
Correct. I almost didn't even play in 2003. I was just on the phone the day before with Eric Seidel, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just sitting here at home." And, "Aren't you coming?" And I said, "Nah, I don't really feel like it." He says, "Come on, it's the World Series. You got to show up." So I said, "Okay." Then my partner said the same thing to me a few hours later, so I decided to go. And otherwise, you never would have heard me in 2003 if those guys hadn't talked to me.
So if we could step back a little bit, actually, I was doing a little research before the show. Your first World Series of Poker, you made the final table, the main event, or your first main event?
Correct. That was in 2007. I came in 6th, and it was actually a pretty disheartening performance. You know the classical beat you get. I had a pair of kings. I lost to Jack Keller, who hit an ace on the river. Then it cost me a lot of chips. Then I went up. My final hand was I had ace queen versus ace 6. The money got all in before the flop, and I couldn't count the number of 6s that came out on that hand.
I wasn't quite sure about the timeline, but I noticed that Howard Lederer was also at that final table in '87. Were you guys were you playing at the Mayfair Club back then? Was it before that, after that?
No, that was contemporaneous with the Mayfair Club. We both came from there. There were a whole bunch of people. Myself, Howard, I believe Steve Zolotov was there. Eric Seidel came in 1988. That was his first appearance, and he could only make it to second, but he did all right.
Yeah, you guys did it right from that club. What was that like being at the final table with Howard and having played? Had you played with him a lot then? Discussed a lot of strategy with him? How did that factor in at that final table?
Howard knew how I played. I knew how he played, and we both were played very carefully against one another. We sort of kept out of each other's way. And we tried to pick on the other people, and unfortunately, one of the other people you tried to pick on was Johnny Chan that year. And back then, Johnny Chan was the man. He really played great. He had commanding presence, and you got to hand it to him. That was his first win of the back-to-back '87 and '88 that he won.
It seems like that, considering your unbelievable track record, as we mentioned in the World Series, it seems like your path to the top of poker is kind of a longer evolution. When I was doing research again, it said you kind of took a hiatus between 87 and 95. You weren't playing a ton, and more so between 95 and 2003. It was a light schedule year-round on poker, period. So how are you keeping your game sharp with not playing as much?
I played once in a while. I would play maybe from 96 on. I would play maybe 5 tournaments a year, 6 tournaments, something like that. And it was just a hobby because I had the business going, and we were busy doing that, making good money, and I wasn't trying to make money at poker. I was just treating it as a hobby.
I'm just curious, Dan, is it like a cognizant decision that you seem like one of those guys that doesn't want to get burnt out, that knows that if he's playing every day all the time in all these tournaments, he's going to get ground down a little bit. So is it kind of like I was saying, is it a conscious decision that you kind of stay away from it when you're not, at the World Series and stuff?
Absolutely, Joe.
Yeah.
It really is. When you're young and you're enthusiastic about the game, you're relatively new to the game. You can't imagine not playing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But believe me, when you put in a number of years, you'll change your mind.
When was the period where you were playing? Was there a time where you were playing it obsessively, when you were playing it all the time and you really built your skill set up? Or
I don't think there was any time I really played it obsessively. The game that I played obsessively was chess back when I was younger, about 40 years ago. That I did play all the time and think about all the time. And after I got burned out on that was the last thing I really went overboard on.
So if you're not playing obsessively, what exactly are you doing? You play 4 or 5 tournaments a year, or you were playing during that hiatus. What are you doing to keep your game in shape? Is it just thinking about the game? Is it talking about the game? Or are you just not even thinking about it? You just come in and play your game that day?
I just come in and play the game that day, basically. The other part of it, what really helped my game a lot was the internet. You can play the one-table satellites or the multi-table satellites on the internet, and there you're not distracted by all the other the ambiance, the watching the people, the noise, etc., like that. You can concentrate on pure technical plays, and that was probably my biggest weakness up to that point. Before that, I was more focused on reading what other people were doing, etc., like that, and I expended most of my energy on that, whereas the technical aspect of the play I was probably weaker on.
So these were the satellites, or you mean sit and goes, basically?
Sit and goes. The sit and goes, I think, are the best training. My opinion is the strongest players in the world are playing in the like the $1,000 or $500 sit and goes online.
Really? Wow.
Oh yeah, I tell you, they're about as good a players I've ever run into. And like the Mike Marazzi,
right?
He came out of that. And I know I played with him a couple of times. He didn't know he was playing with me, and I didn't know I was playing with him until finally he won a few tournaments, and they said, "Oh, that's the grinder,"
right.
And that's how I knew it was him.
Yeah, Nick Schulman and Josh Schlein, those kids who have come up really fast in the game. As soon as they turned 21, hit it bigger. Also, people who were playing in those big sit and goes online as well. When you say the technical plays, what part of your game are you working on while you're in a sit and go? It seems like that, or at least from what I've heard, we talked to Eric Haber on the show. He's online as Sheets. He plays the big sit and goes. He said that you have to realize right away that sit and goes are not real poker, was what he said on the show. And now you're saying it's a great place to learn the technical aspect of the game. So where does that fall for you?
He's both right and wrong. where he's right, it's not real poker, is that you don't get a chance. The number of chips that you have in relation to the blinds and antes is too low, so you don't get much of a chance to play quote unquote real poker if it's you ever even have a chance to do that there. But when the game, that game actually mimics the second half of a poker tournament where the blinds and antes go up, and now you have to know inflection points where the odds that you have in the pot versus what you think your chances in the tournament are. You have to make certain decisions. You have to go with a hand even though you don't want to. And it's almost a technical thing. It's not poker as you know poker. It's really, is this a decision where I'm getting 11? Is it 11-10 decision, or am I 4.5 to 1 dog? What exactly is going on? And once you figure that out, then you're just putting your money in the pot. And is that poker in a sense? It is a little bit, but not really. But that's what the sit and goes teach you, because all the money is at the end of a tournament. It's not at the beginning of the tournament.
Right. Well, and it actually kind of becomes like a math problem at that point. I mean, it's kind of what you're describing. You know, you're figuring out the odds, what you have. I mean, and the person who's so good at this stuff is Chris Ferguson.
Absolutely.
I mean, he has it all in his head when it's correct to move in with Jack 6. When and it's automatic. I mean, he just knows all of these things. So it's pretty amazing. You know, all that information.
When I played at a table with him in the 2004 World Series, and that's what I paid attention to him, and I noticed that's what he was doing. I said, oh, he's doing it this point and this point. And I actually even made a call. I says, he did it on the button. I says, well, you know what? The heck with this. I called him with King Jack, and it was a fairly sizable amount of money, and he turned over ace deuce or 3 or something like that, which I was a little bit disappointed on. I didn't think he had that strong a hand, and his ace held up, and people were surprised I called with that kind of hand. But I thought he was making a lot of plays, so you now have to step up and do something and let him know. Well, you got someone out there that's going to call.
You don't get the Action Dan moniker without doing a few crazy things. I don't know why they would be surprised about that.
Does anyone still buy that you're a complete rock anymore? Now that you've given up so much in your books and they've seen you on TV a bit?
Yes, you still have to buy. You can sit there and look at me, and I'm not going to do anything for long periods of time, and you just can't help yourself.
Oh, we know, Dan.
No, you just can't.
Know. I've played plenty with you in the last couple of months.
I still play relatively tight.
It's really funny. I went up to Bear, actually.
As he grins, by the way.
I know. It's really funny. I went up to Bear, and I was like, yeah, I'm playing with Dan. You know, he plays really tight. And Bear went, that is such a crock of garbage. He was like, don't fall into that. This was months and months and months ago, probably like 7 or 8 months ago. He's like, don't fall into that. Don't get trapped. He's doing stuff. Don't worry.
Hearing you talk about that experience being at the table with Chris, it seems you're talking very strategically about, and also the way you were talking about the sit and goes. How much of your game is feel, and how much of it are just these strategic situations? Does that come from your game's background a little bit with chess and backgammon?
Yes. Having experience across culture of other games helps a lot. It gives you the outside experience. Like the backgammon players, one of the reasons they adapt so well to poker is the math in backgammon. They actually understood the math of their game much better than any of the poker players understood the math of their game. And then when they came into poker, they adapted very easily. They didn't, it's like Gus Hansen, people like, they don't throw away the hand so readily. They're getting 1.5 to 1. They really consider whether they're supposed to be calling or not. Whereas most normal traditional poker players, 1.5 to 1, well, you don't even think about it. The hand gets tossed into the center. And I think Gus and those guys pointed the way for the so-called normal poker players to rethink what they're doing in poker.
Normal like Gavin Smith. I don't know about normal.
Well, Gavin Smith is one of the new breed that also does that. Now, I don't know, Gavin, do you have a background like in backgammon or?
I played a little bit of backgammon, but not really like like you guys. I mean, I played a lot. I played a lot of backgammon and sort of studied it a bit.
He beats up on the card player staff for $20 at a time in backgammon. That's what I've seen.
But, well, he knows the old saw. You don't have to be the best backgammon player in the world. You just have to play against the weaker ones.
Right, exactly.
So how much of your game is feel? Is feel overrated in comparison to the strategic points that you talk about in your book and that you're discussing here right now?
I would say feel counts for maybe 20, 25%. and the other technical aspects count for the 75%, the math and everything. And when you say feel, remember, a lot of the so-called tells in poker, most of them don't come from looking at your opponent and saying, "Oh, his hand just twitched a little bit when he went to put his chips in." It comes from his betting patterns. It comes from what does he have a tendency to do in certain situations? Is this the kind of betting they would normally do, and he's not doing it this time? That's when all of a sudden you hear the concept the feel comes out of.
Right. I think Dan's probably underestimating too how much of his game is feel. I think probably so much of it is second nature now that it doesn't seem like it's feel when it really is. Like, a lot of what he might do would be positional and situational things that just come up, and it's his second nature that he knows that, guy raises late and he's on the button and doesn't have to have much of a hand because he's going to just be able to take that away. And, you stop thinking that that's feel, even though it still is a feel play in many respects.
So they're sort of intertwined somewhat.
I think so, yeah.
So maybe we're just having a semantic difficulty here. Gavin, you consider betting patterns part of feel? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, I'm saying that a lot of your plays that you may make that are feel plays because they're second nature now.
Okay.
like the re-steals and whatnot that you may do that when a guy raises late and you're jamming on him out of the blind or whatever.
Oh well, I don't disagree with your statement there. I was just. I guess it was a semantic difficulty. I consider feel something like you observe something of your opponent, and I consider something like observing betting patterns to be more of a technical nature. So, but if you're including that as feel, then I don't disagree with you.
How about 2003 and 2004? Obviously an enormous accomplishment. It's discussed as one of the greatest feats in tournament poker history. If you can give us, and I don't know if there's enough I wish we had more time in the interview, but give us a window into your mind, maybe even more so in 2004 when you were heading for it again and what you were feeling and what was going on there.
I'll tell you, what helped me a lot during those 2 years, when you have a long tournament and you have chips and you can maneuver, it's like a chess game. It really is. You get a chance to maneuver, you get a chance to play, and it has a lot of similarities with chess. You could play hours a chess game, 4 or 5 hours in tournaments, and if you make one blunder after a lot of good moves, you can lose, and that's it, and you have that pressure on you. It's the same kind of pressure in a tournament. You spend even more so, you spend days, committing days to the tournament, and you make one slip. You have that pressure, that one slip, and as you guys know as players, when that decision comes on you, it's almost not the money. It's like, God, I've put 20 hours into this damn thing, and am I blowing it on this stupid move?
That's what I did last year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you feel that way.
That's what I did last year, right? Played two hard days, got into the money, and tried to raise the tightest living human off 2 aces.
Who's the tightest living human?
I didn't throw him away either.
I'm assuming it didn't work, right?
No, it didn't work. It was this Canadian kid that was there, and he wasn't moving a chip. He was never doing anything. I raised queen 10 of clubs, and he re-raised them out of the blind, and somehow I found myself pushing the rest of my chips into the pot with queen eye.
That's feel for you, kids, right there.
Really
So, but as far as making that final table, were you feeling you handled the pressure well? Obviously, got there and got deep. Were you feeling like it was something special? Was there a very serious sense of accomplishment afterwards, and the fact that you even got there 2 years in a row with such enormous fields?
Oh, I remember sitting down and looking up at the. When I first sat down at the final table and I looked up at the top. Probably the monitors. I says, I can't believe this. I'm here for the second time. This is unreal.
It is. I mean, the accomplishment was unbelievable. Obviously,
it was. I just felt it was unreal.
Yeah, but why were you stiff last year?
I wasn't as stiff last year. Last year, I eliminated maybe more players than I eliminated my entire tournament career in the World Series of Poker. I eliminated 4,000 players last year.
Wow. That's a lot of players.
Yeah, I came in 1,500. So, I mean, in one sense, it's a great accomplishment.
Right. Well, and I think the truth is that you can finally tell people is he signed a deal with the devil and he didn't re-up last year. It's okay. I mean, I know we weren't going to bring it up.
He let you out? You have to re-up?
He offered Dan to re-up for 2005.
The devil refused to exercise his option.
Hi, this is Stephanie Larimore, Playboy Playmate. Miss June 2006. Do you want to play naked with me? Naked poker, that is. Log on to nakedpoker.com and you will automatically be entered into a free tournament where the winner takes me, Stephanie Larimore, Miss June 2006, Playboy Playmate, out on a private date. Log on to nakedpoker.com now to enter and win. I love playing naked. Naked poker, that is.
Welcome back to the circuit, everyone. We are broadcasting on Sports Byline Radio on Sirius Channel 122 on cardplayer.com and on the iTunes Music Store as a podcast. Scott Huff and Gavin Smith here from the Bellagio in Las Vegas as Joe Sebok has gone back to try to make it to day 2 of the $1,000 no-limit hold'em with $1,000 revise. Just so everyone knows, if you're enjoying the show, pick up a copy of Card Player Magazine, maybe even subscribe to it. We're 85% off right now on our price. It's $19.99. If you subscribe now, you'll be entered into a drawing for airfare, lodging, and 2 tickets to any sporting event in the world. Absolutely any one that you want. Gavin, what would you pick? Stanley Cup?
No, I'd probably go to the Masters.
That'd be pretty cool. You know that Joe would go to the Polar Penguin Sumo Championships, right?
Yeah, because he's a freak.
Because he is a little bit of a freak. So, Harrington, History of Harrington, Part 1.
Yeah,
we just got through.
Some cool stuff.
Very cool stuff. Tomorrow,
more cool stuff.
More cool stuff. It's going to be strategic play.
Yeah, Dan's a smart guy.
And maybe he absolutely is. And maybe we'll have Joe Sebok back. And did you know that Dan Harrington's chauffeur is Steve Zolotow?
Wow.
Well, you saw him here. Said he'd drive him anywhere. He just asked him if he wanted to go back to L.A. All right, everybody. We'd like to thank our guest tonight, Dan Harrington. More with Dan tomorrow. Gavin, thanks for picking up the slack where Sebok has left off. He's just like playing poker or something, which is ridiculous because we're not really used to
him making it that far.
Exactly. He managed to last longer than 5.5 minutes. So we wish Joe the best of luck. We will be back. More Harrington, more Huff, more Smith, more Sebok tomorrow on the circuit.